on this topic of Claude Mythos, in April 2026, Anthropic, the company, debuted Claude Mythos, a model that isn't just smarter at writing poetry or emails, it's a specialist in offensive cyber operations. Because the model is so effective at breaking into secure systems, Anthropic has refused to release it to the public, and instead they're locked in a digital vault called Project Glasswing. It all sounds very like James Bond here, allowing only a handful of the world's most powerful companies and government agencies to use it for defence. Now, if Mythos can find a way into a bank or a power grid in seconds, we're no longer fighting at human speed, are we, Emily? We're fighting at processor speed, and this transition changes everything about how we keep the internet and our personal data safe. Wouldn't you agree?
I would, and I think that the Mythos story shows just how AI is accelerating, and this is a very vivid example of how it can just completely change the scale for human beings, going in a very rapid time and identifying multiple bugs across multiple systems. Now, the reporting is that the level of confidence in the model is equivalent to a senior cybersecurity researcher, so a sort of 10-year qualified, but quicker and more accurate.
Well, the stats are amazing, aren't they? 10 years of experience, but does the work in seconds rather than hours, and that's what's called a SWE bench verified test, where they're testing they're evaluating the AI in a framework compared to a human. But they've gone through others as well, like a cyber gym, where they actually capture the flag-style digital obstacle course, and the AI is put in a simulated environment. And this is where humans will get distracted, but the AI remains focused on the task. And then a USAMO 26, 97% evaluation, one of the hardest maths competitions for the brightest students in the country. The AI had a 97.6% capability, a result set over time, which means it's busting some of the deepest maths problems in seconds.
Yeah, and I think, having commented on a lot of cybersecurity stories over the years, there's always the technical element, like what is happening and what is new. And that can, as you've just rattled off, Lucian, there's loads of stats and there's loads of language in there that you think, wow. So the meaning of that is it's more capable, faster, and doesn't get bored like humans. So what's the point of us, really, as human beings? But I think that the key questions we should be asking is like, this has happened. What does that mean for defenders? And, how great was digital security anyway? Not great. And I think that while this is really important as a breakthrough, it's also very important to recognise that there isn't much AI being used in attacking at the moment. Why? Because it's most hackers just log into systems. They're incredibly insecure. And the final point I want to make, and then I'll hand back to you, is that there's always been more bugs and more vulnerabilities in systems than there has been resource to fix them. And so there's always been a sort of a trade-off between what is the most important, what is the highest risk, and you put your people onto that, because patching vulnerabilities also creates risk, it creates instability, it creates distraction and possibly safety issues depending on the system. So this is an interesting story because it's surfacing a lot of the weaknesses in our current way of thinking about cybersecurity. You can't patch your way out of it. You need to be thinking back at the creation level, thinking about how do we create more secure code, but you can never really imagine how different elements of a program, and this is much more your area, Lucian, how different technologies will interact with one another, a bit like a patient that is on lots of different medication, and those medications have their own side effects that can make you ill.
Yeah, and I have my view on that as an engineer, which is I think that writing bug-free software and hack-free software is boring. Engineers are put under pressure to create new features and deliver new parts of a system, under incredible pressure by managers. I've worked in education, I've worked in health, I've worked in local government services providing software infrastructure, and nobody wants to pay a penny for security. So as an engineer, you're just knocking out the features and the cool things that people are excited about. Programs are boring. Making programs safe is boring. Now, Alice, you did a piece of research recently that looked at 27 million lexicographical patterns within domain names, looking for patterns that gave you the probability of a scammer using those strings, and you called them thematic lures. Did you read all of those, or did you just simply use AI to help you do it? And is AI a simple process?
Well, we did a calculation. I think we might have shared this before. We had to report the impact of our research so far, and also the impact of using AI on our research project. And so we figured out if one human had done the work that we got the AI to do in 15 minutes, it would have taken one human with no holiday, no weekends, not even 9 to 5, just working at all times, 107 years to do the analysis.
That's a very boring job that you need to train your grandchildren in.
I did probably like 3,000 signals, maybe more actually, at least a few thousand out of our data set of 27 million.
Can I just sanity check? Why are you doing that with AI?
Well, for each signal, me as a human and all of our human testers, what we'd do is we'd see a domain name, we'd give it a score from 0 to 4 of like this. So are the words in this to do with old people? Are they to do with like single mum with a child who's 3,
training,
and you're going 0, you're going 3, you're going 2. So that for 107 years, no breaks, no holiday, no weekends, very boring. So we did it ourselves as human testers, like thousands of times, and then you get the AI to do what you've been doing.
I think that's a really important thing I just wanted to pause on is, yes, we saved one human 107 years, but it still wasn't vibe researching, was it? There was establishing the ground truth with a golden set of 385 items per prompt and per element of prompt. So I think overall the human reviewers, so that was 3 or 4 people, looked at more than 13,000 items, and it took 4 to 8 weeks. So it wasn't we didn't just vibe it into a chat bot and then get it to write the paper.
So you use the AI processor and its capability, and you train it with what's called the sort of AI model, and there is what's called a weights leaked version of that model. If you end up leaking that weights leaked version, the weights, they're essentially the brain, the DNA of this. And so obviously we've got a version that Anthropic have developed called Claude Mythos, which has had all of this background work put into it to help it understand the DNA of poor software. And now you're able to hyper feed it with lots of software, and it's able to recognise those clusters as something bad. And so it's taking 100 years worth of boring work, and it's rapidly accelerating that. This is just, is this something we should worry about? Because what they're calling it's a possibility to. It's kind of the blueprint for, just to be dramatic about it, as like a nuclear weapon, because actually you've found a way that if this gets out, that hackers can use to just find weaknesses in systems that people can't afford to replace or upgrade. Is this toxic stuff that really needs to be kept private?
Yes, and it won't be. it would just inevitably end up in the public domain somehow by accident or design. But also, I think it is, clearly, I think Anthropic is having an extended moment. Claude as agentic AI and this Mythos model, Anthropic is really at the frontier of what's possible, but others are, there is a very hot competition between others. So I think, what does this mean for people? I think what it means for current cybersecurity defenders in those companies and organisations that have access to the Mythos is they're incredibly busy trying to fix things. Yeah. And that means they can't do other stuff. And what we will find out in the future was that worth it?
Right.
Was it worth it? If there is a vulnerability in a piece of software that has 0.1% market share and has been sitting there unexploited for 27 years, is the world really going to collapse because of that bug?
Well,
and is the world going to be a better place or a worse place because the scarce resources of bug fixing are being deployed on a whole spray of things that may or may not be important?
I argue as an engineer at this stage that yes, because if you're talking about boring bugs in lifts, if you're talking about boring bugs that in bits of machinery, in
nuclear
hospitals,
power stations,
nuclear power station air conditioning systems, that people can't be bothered to test, they're 27 years old, and I've heard people say they've lasted for decades, so we're not going to bother with them, then I think, yes, all of those need a rapid review. And my final point is this stuff safe with agentic? We were talking to Eagle, who was meant to be on this podcast today because he actually writes with AI all the time and is our AI expert, but we needed him behind the desk because we haven't hired Anthony yet, who's also sitting behind the desk finding out what it's all like. But Anthropic, their agentic workflow was leaked of the Anthropic release workflow. So they're not a company that is really themselves able to hold on to everything. So let's watch this space anyway, a fascinating topic.